So, hi, I'm Judy, and my background is I'm from upstate New York. I got a bachelor's degree from the University of Buffalo in speech and language science, and I have master's degrees from the University of Virginia in speech and language pathology and education. And I've been working in this field with communication disorders for 48 years. Yeah. And it's I love it, it's my passion. So, and now I have a private practice in St. Michael's. So we'll get right on to this because we got a lot to cover. The one thing I wanted to say to start this with is communication is a transaction between two or more people. It's not a one-sided situation. And it's not just about the words. So some of what I'm going to talk about today are these filters that you see on the PowerPoint. The atmosphere, the environment, all that affects effective communication. So there's going to be a lot of things that I talk about that you're going to be like, how is a speech pathologist doing this? And I have to give credit to the many wonderful educators that I've worked with and to the physical therapists and occupational therapists who I co-treated with for 38 of my 48 years. I learned a lot from them, and mainly I learned that communication is about the whole person, not just about the words passing back and forth. So I'll be talking about a lot of stuff that you may wonder what it has to do with communication, but everything has to do with communication. So first, did you know that the cochlear nerve, your inner ear, and the vestibular nerve, which controls your balance, connect together into one cochlear vestibular nerve. So when you are working with someone who is having trouble processing information, not just hearing it, but processing it, what you want to do is to make sure that they have had enough vestibular stimulation to enhance their processing system. Even a rocking chair, sitting in a rocking chair and having that vestibular stimulation is going to increase your ability to process because it's going to go through both of those nerves. So exercise, yoga, swing, anything that stimulates your proprioceptive and your balance. Anybody recognize this?
Every day.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, which is going to affect almost all of us, is presbycusis. And that is a hearing loss that comes along with age. It has very many causes. It is something that 30% of people aged 65 to 74 have a hearing loss. After age 75, that increases to 50%. So 50% of the geriatric population more than likely have a hearing loss. Some recognize it, some don't. And it's accumulation of all of the environmental noises, loss of your hair cells, heredity, sometimes taking certain antibiotics or aspirin can affect that. The main thing it does is it creates isolation. You get isolated because you cannot hear what people are saying. And so you do one of two things, okay? Go down. How many people have experienced this? Me too, me too. So, oh yeah, yeah.
I do that all the time, don't I?
That's right, dear.
So the biggest challenge for them is ambient noise around the room, that it is interfering with their ability to focus in and filter just your voice. Yesterday at the party, there was a lot of ambient noise around. It was hard for me to focus in on individual voices. Consonants, S, T, Z, go first. If you notice that you are having trouble understanding a child, those are pretty much all sibilant and high frequency sounds. So the other thing that I did before I got my hearing aids, and I didn't even recognize it, is I would keep turning up the volume on the TV until eventually my daughter came in and said, "Mom, I can hear your television outside. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I've got a problem going on there. The other thing that was an indicator for me was big meetings. I would leave these meetings totally exhausted because it took so much of my cognition to attend to the person talking and concentrate on hearing. So your first step, if you think, or if your loved one thinks that you might have a hearing loss, go to an audiologist and get it checked out. And then if they do recommend hearing aids, there are so many different hearing aids that you can use. I trialed all of them. I hated the behind the ear one because I'm constantly doing that and I could hear myself doing that and it drove me crazy. So mine are in the ear canal and most people don't even see them unless they're really looking at my ear. And some of the new medical plans, I think Advantage does have some input into the pay for a hearing aid. They are expensive, but in my mind, it's quality of life. And this is really important, and I discovered this doing some research in my field when I was thinking, maybe I'm not hearing correctly, that what is happening, and some of you have probably heard of plasticity of function, where your brain, different neurons in the brain can take over different skills. And we usually talk about that as people healing from a stroke or healing from substance abuse. But it goes the other way too. So if you don't use your hearing or you're depending more on visual, then your syntactic combinations for audiological sounds is going to decrease and your visual is going to take over. So what that has resulted in is some research that has shown that if you have a moderate hearing loss, you're twice as likely to have a cognitive decline earlier than expected. If you've got a severe hearing loss, it's 5 times the risk. So you're not just risking your hearing, you're risking cognitive decline because you're not fully using your neurological system. What happens is your auditory cortex gets repurposed into the visual cortex. It's called cross-modal recruitment. But that's another reason that it's important to get an audiological eval. So what do you expect when you have that? There is a learning curve. And how many people I've heard said, I got hearing aids, I can't stand them. Because they didn't expect to have the curve in learning. It's confusing to hear all those different noises. It's a totally different way of filtering out background noises. It's skin sensitivity around your ear. It takes a long time and it takes perseverance. So if you know somebody who's just getting a hearing aid, tell them to just take some time, wear your hearing aids as much as you can, take them out when you need to, take a break, and work on having conversations. One of the things I did was I got my grandkids and I said, can you just talk to Nana for a little bit? I need to make sure that these things are working, which they thought was really cool. And I found out a lot of information about that. But and then go to a follow-up visit because your audiologist can tweak whatever problems you're having. Like I'm hearing too much background noise, or I'm not hearing the low frequencies. I can't hear my grandkids talk. I can't hear the alarm, the phone ring. So all of those things.
Well, it sounds like other people need to have patience too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And we're gonna get to that.
Hey Judy, my brother has hearing aids and he can control the volume with his phone.
Yes. Yes.
So if it gets too noisy, he can obviously turn the volume down.
Yeah, there's so many different technologies and the advancements that they're making now. All you have to do, there's tons of things like that. Typically, they're behind the ear.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember. what
I
it's
can't
called.
do that with mine,
Yeah.
but if I know I'm going to go into, a difficult environment, sometimes I just take them out. Like when my grandkids are having a sleepover and my daughter's worried that I'm going to be staying awake because of the noise, I say, don't worry, just take my hearing aids out. won't hear a thing.
Help with husbands who are snoring next to you.
Probably, probably. So what you can do as the person wearing the hearing aids is tell your family and friends. It's not a big deal. And make sure that they are facing you when they're talking to you. Tell them, please don't look away. Please face me when you're talking to me. If you're trying to have a conversation, turn off the TV or the music, anything that is also going to pick up on your hearing aids. When you go to a restaurant, don't sit near the kitchen. Don't sit near the bar. Don't sit near large windows or pictures or mirrors, because the shadow effect of the person trying to read your face as well as listen to you interferes with that. So do sit in a cushioned seat that's going to absorb the ambient noise. Do ask for a round table. Do sit near curtains, anything that absorbs the noise, to make that easier. So for the listener, which is what you were referring to, look at the person you're talking to. Don't turn your face away, because they can't read your facial expression or your lips. Not in front of a window, we just talked about that. Decorate your home, if there's somebody has compromised hearing skills, with absorbent materials, rugs, draperies, wall hangings, the cushioned seats, something that will absorb all that ambient noise and allow them to concentrate on what you're saying. One of the things that I did is turn on the captions on TV. Then you're not really trying, so many times you're watching this movie, you go, what did they say? You got the captions. That was a pretty easy fix. Use visuals, use your body language, use your facial expression, and speak clearly and slowly, but not exaggerated. Don't yell, that just distorts the sound waves. Just slow down a little bit and speak clearly. This is something that I never considered before, because all of my meetings, all of the situations I've been in, we have sat at long linear tables. And I'm doing this. I can't see your face. So round tables, where you get full view of the person's face and you can look at their body language and look at their facial expressions. That's something I never thought of. So the other nice thing with, one of the first things I noticed when I got my hearing aids is I did what a lot of my older brothers and sisters do. I could only listen to the cell phone on speaker. And that's because your cell phone uses electromagnetic energy. It doesn't use sound waves. So now there is this new technology called a telecoil that can go into the hearing aid, and it converts that electromagnetic energy into sound waves, which is, they didn't have that when I got mine.
That's astounding.
It is, it's astounding.
Our son is learning how to use the phone, and one of his caregivers just turns her phone on and puts it on speaker. His voice is completely different.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Anne, you can sit now.
And that's okay. I was asked to be the assistant.
and the other thing, and I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday, when she's having difficulty talking with her mom on the phone, I said, FaceTime her, Zoom her. That way she can see your facial expressions. It's so easy to do. Well, she doesn't understand the technology. Then arrange a time to do it when her caregiver is there, and the caregiver can pick it all up. Oh, okay, I have to go. The other thing that I didn't realize is that when you are talking on the phone, you have to hold it a little bit higher to get the sound waves. And I didn't realize that. Any questions on hearing? Okay, moving along. Aphasia. This is typical after a stroke, traumatic brain injury, but there's also some inherited progressive aphasia diseases. I'm working with a patient right now that has that. It's typically trauma to the left side of your brain, and it affects everything that is considered communication: reading, writing, speaking, listening. Because it's in that area of the brain that symbolizes things and connects words to symbols. So it's very, very common. And here's how we deal with it. They need your support. Typically, myophasia patients have been intact cognitively, but they can't express it. So one of the things you need to do, again, make sure that they're seeing your phone. Make sure that, yeah, just. Sorry about that. I had it on silent.
I know, the two of us.
There's also, okay, let me see, cognitive overload. So when a person has aphasia, they're working so hard to process the information. They're taking in what you're saying. They're trying to activate that damaged part of their neurological system to figure out how to respond and then try and find the word. And when there's a lot of other stuff going on, it's called cognitive overload. It's when they just shut down and they give up. And you don't want that to happen because that leads to apathy.
Can that be caused by fatigue also?
Fatigue, not feeling well. I mean, we experience it too when we're feeling rotten or we have a sinus infection and we're taking medication and everybody's talking to you and you got a million things to do and you're like, but people with aphasia don't know how to express that.
Yes.
So it comes out in different ways. And the other thing is listen, take the time to listen. And you know, 13-second rule is what the speech therapists go by. So if you say something, wait for a response for at least 13 seconds. It feels like an eternity. But that's how long it takes for somebody to process the information, form their response, and find the word to tell you.
And watch the person,
And watch,
because you can tell
yes.
when they're trying to process it.
And what was I gonna say? 13-second rule, okay, this is what I was gonna say. When you have trouble with auditory processing and somebody says, I'd like you to sit here, please. And then 5 seconds go by. Would you please sit down here? I've given you another direction. You're starting that process all over again. I've used different words, I've used different intonation. So every time you interrupt that process of them trying to figure out how to respond, they start all over again. And that can also cause cognitive overload. It's just too much. And it's something that we don't think of. And sometimes when I'm working with my patients, I literally count out 13 seconds. And I watch their face to see if they're able to comprehend it. The other thing is talk to them like they're adults. So I have one patient who, she fell, she has progressive aphasia, and she rebelled going to her speech therapist. She absolutely rebelled it. Wouldn't go. Her mom was like, her daughter was like, come on, you've got to go, Mom, this is rehab, you've got to go. And finally, she said, sweetie. And her daughter figured out the speech therapist kept calling her honey and sweetie. And it pissed her off. She didn't want to go to somebody who was going to talk to her like that. And it, you know, it makes sense. Cognitively, she's an adult. Use drawings, use visuals with verbal communication so that both of those neurological pathways are being fired. And we will get into that. Oops, I went a little too far, I think. Give me back here. Nope. Okay. Every once in a while, ask a question that has a simple yes, no answer to see the level of comprehension. Check it, because they do what we all do. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. I don't have a clue what you just said to me. So every once in a while, check on that to make sure that they have good comprehension. One of my patients, constantly mixes up pronouns. She calls her husband daddy. I'm not going to correct her on that. That's not what's important, and you're not going to fix that. You accept it if you know from the context she's talking about her husband when she's calling him daddy. Okay, let it go. It's not going to fix it. You're just going to cause them more stress. Encourage circumlocution, which means if I cannot describe, you know, it's round and it's soft and flour, and eventually you'll figure out I'm talking about my mouse pad. But it's their way of verbally processing so that they can find that word. And you should encourage that. And my patient is like, don't tell me. She'll put her hand up. I'm like, okay.
It's also the influence of the tactile sense, which is so critical to
Yes.
all of the senses.
Yes,
And
yes.
the feel of these different objects
Mhm.
will bring back.
Communicate with each other.
Yeah. So engage in normal activities. Don't shelter them. Let people know what's going on. And the other thing that she really didn't like is people were making decisions for her and she had no input. Now, they were financial decisions. They were complicated, but there's always a way where you can present them in bits and pieces so that she feels like she's part of it. This is a very independent woman. And the other thing is try not to be too overprotective. Let them do as much as they can do because that's their sense of self. And cognitively, they know that that's their sense of self. So more simple accommodations, 13-second rule, don't forget that one. Body language. So I'm listening. Or I'm listening and I'm really paying attention to you. It's all in your body language. This as opposed to this. Leaning in so that they know that you're paying attention. Because they lose their track too. And as long as you're attending to them, they're going to be able to stay net attention. Use visuals like calendars, and I'll show you a few of those coming up. This is what I made for this woman that I've been talking about is a memory book. Now, she has progressive aphasia. It was an inherited disease. But she also did have a fall. And when she first started working with me, she was like, what's going on? I don't understand, in her own way. She was explaining to me that she really did not know what was going on. So I made her a book that had, and I talked to her family first to make sure it was okay, that had this in it. And she could still read. So I fell, I hit my head. I hurt this part of my brain. She wanted me to show her, and she'd be like, so it's right here? Because it's made sense to her. You know, how do you make sense out of not being able to speak when you used to speak so fluently? And then the next one, she loved this slide, and I just pulled this off the internet. And I'll show you later an application on the iPad that shows these pictures and also speaks. And so I recorded her speech, and I said, I know what I want to say. It all comes out wrong. It's so frustrating. And she laughed, and she reached out and held my hand. Like somebody got it. And I practice so I can remember the important things. Now, I can do a little lie when it comes to something like this that she can understand. When she asks me if it's going to get better, no. But we're going to keep working so you can remember the important things. And the important things for her were the names of her grandchildren, her family, and her address. So you figure out what's important and then you concentrate on that. Let the others go. You know, if they can't think of a name, just let it go. Don't correct them. Gestures, facial language, pantomime, 13-second rule. You've seen all this. Okay, don't talk down to them. So this is a sample of her memory book. And then it continued with pictures of her grandchildren, pictures of her children with their names. And if she couldn't remember, she just touches the screen and it speaks. And then she tries to remember. So another, did you know? You guys do know this. Did you know cognitive reserve? So use it or lose it. It's true with your brain too. The more that you learn, the more that you take in, the more you do crossword puzzles, the more you stimulate the neurological connections in your brain, the more you're going to have cognitive reserve. So never, ever, ever stop learning. I can say preparing for this, doing this class, it just stimulated me to do the research and make sure everything I was saying was going to be up to date and the research was correct. And it was very stimulating. So keep working at it. It's not going to stop it, but it can slow it down. Okay, dementia. Okay, so it's a group of symptoms. It's different from just a communication disability. It's memory, it's your normal thinking, it's reasoning ability. It just takes pieces of your brain. And it's so difficult to make that journey. Part of it also is the word recognition, or what you call word retrieval, trying to find the right words, called agnosia. And just doing simple tasks is difficult because the main thing is that dementia and Alzheimer's affects your frontal cortex. Your frontal cortex is the area of problem solving. It's how you respond to situations. It's how you figure out to get from this part to this part. That's the area that is damaged in dementia and Alzheimer's. So your brain has to compensate for that. And this is real quick. So Alzheimer's, it's unknown. They think it's plaque buildup around the neurons. It's irreversible. Dementia, on the other hand, it's potentially reversible, and potentially you can slow the process down. It can be reversed by drugs, alcohol, metabolic disorders, in some cases. In other cases, it can't be, but it can be treated. And so what we want to do is we want to treat it so that they have quality of life.
And one issue under the many causes, which is of vital importance, is thyroid issues.
Yes.
Something that many people don't even consider. And it is very important to see an endocrinologist if dementia is beginning.
You're right.
Our son
You're
has early onset.
Yes. And that is huge. Thank you for reminding me.
Are there other symptoms of thyroid?
Just a blood test can tell you whether or
I
not
can
you
tell
have.
you the TSH and T4
Yeah.
will.
The doctor's not gonna order that normally, are they, or do they?
Well, you can certainly ask them.
Yeah.
And start off with, that's me, but I start off with, well, from my research, I see that thyroid issues are part of this.
Yeah.
You know, my son started showing Parkinson's symptoms, and I said right away, endocrinologist.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. So that, yes, absolutely.
So add it to your annual blood test.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, when I do my annual blood test, they do include that.
I think they might know mine too, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
They do a what?
I thought they
Thyroid
test for
test.
thyroid.
Yeah.
It's a TSH, it's thyroid stimulating hormone, and that tells you whether the thyroid is working or not.
And the thyroid is definitely connected to the part of your brain that is demonstrated in dementia. Yeah. So what can we do? Oh my goodness. It's such a frustrating disease. It's sad and frustrating and difficult. What they lose is executive functioning skills, problem-solving skills, being able to see the small parts of a problem. Instead, they see the huge picture and get totally overwhelmed, cognitive overload, boom, shut down. Either shut down or get mad. Confusion, orientation. They lose visual perception, not visual acuity, but the ability to process what they're seeing visually, just like the ability to process what they're hearing auditorily. And sometimes we overlook that.
And also in terms of the visual, something that doesn't seem frightening to us for any reason can be absolutely alarming.
Yes.
And so you need to know what the trigger points are when you're dealing with someone who has
Right on.
dementia.
Yep, absolutely. Another thing that people don't realize, and I just evaluated a patient a couple of months ago, I guess. Your olfactory nerves are affected as you age. Your sense of taste changes. And I was working with this patient who had been through all of the biological and medical tests. He was losing weight, he wasn't eating, and I observed him. And as the spoon was coming to his face, he looked away like that. And I was like, oh, something's wrong with the olfactory system, that it's so repulsive to him. So be aware that people's tastes change, and what you think they might like isn't exactly what they do want. It's hard to remember, it's hard, and you feel like you're doing the caregiver thing by, oh, he loves hamburgers. Maybe not anymore.
No, that happened with our son. He
Yeah.
used to love applesauce with cinnamon, and just gave it to him a few months ago.
Exactly.
Basically spit it out.
But you don't think of that. The first thing that someone who doesn't know to think of that thinks of it as behavior,
Yep.
refusal, sometimes aggression.
Right.
Because I've had patients just shove it away
Right.
about that.
But that's why it's so important to consider all of these factors other than behavior that influence how a person approaches.
I love the way you think, because I'm getting right there.
Well, you were my boss.
The other thing is emotional fragility. And that is, think about it again. Your frontal cortex is your problem solving. When that starts to fall apart, your amygdala, which is what they call your animal brain, is going to take over. What does that brain do? Fight, flight, or freeze. So they're either going to get violent. We've had lots of situations with that. They're going to shut down completely, or they're just going to absolutely run away from it. Because their amygdala at that point is stronger than their frontal cortex. So we have to look at the problem situation in a more technical manner.
Is running away exhibited by just shutting down?
Yep, absolutely. And we'll talk more about that. So your symptoms and solutions, memory loss. Keep a notebook. My brother Jimmy has some frontal lobe damage due to the Vietnam War. He has no short-term memory. So he writes down on a memo pad, the same kind my dad used to use, everything he does. Had breakfast, took my medicine, walked the dog. And then when I call him at night, I say, what have you done today? He can't remember, but he can look at his list and he can tell me what he's done. So it's a pretty easy solution. Not finding the right word, circumlocution. Let them talk about it as much as they can. Reduced ability to organize. Break your task down into small pieces so that they can be able to do it. Dressing. Dressing is a very complex activity if you think about it. What goes on first? What goes with what? So make a checklist. Get out of bed. Get your underwear. Put on your pants so that they can see the sequence and they can be more independent.
And not just words, but also pictures.
And that on the slide, I know it doesn't show up too well, but that's exactly,
Yes.
you want to do it
That's
visually as
critical.
well, yes. You also want to do it on green paper. Studies have
Yes.
shown
Yes.
that this is an alerting color. And if you use bold black on green paper, they are going to pay attention to it. Weird, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, no, ophthalmologists understand that. There are different kinds of lenses, colored lenses,
Mhm.
that are used for different kinds of ophthalmological
Yeah.
So you're talking about lime color more so than dark green. Yeah.
Fine.
I
Well,
mean, actually, they found that with fire vehicles, emergency vehicles. The
yes,
lime, you can
Yes.
see the lime colored fire truck.
Yep.
Further away than you can a red colored fire.
Yes.
it's a very alerting color.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You make those little changes and that minimizes those filters that are causing communication difficulties. Little changes in the environment. Let's see. So we did that. Metallic taste. Make your meals a social event. Use good organic herbs and spices. Typically, people with dementia don't like food at room temperature. They may like it hot, they might like it cold. And what I would do is keep a list. This is what was presented, this is what they ate and how much. And eventually you're gonna look at that list and go, oh, they really don't like oatmeal in the morning. They want something cold. It is all be part of the process. Hallucinations. They're going to come out to you, and my friend Jane's mom did this for me one time and talked about what a wonderful night she had with her deceased husband, at a beautiful party, and the pretty dress she wore. And my friend's looking at me like, and my comment was, oh, that sounds wonderful. Why break that apart? Why say, Mom, Dad's dead? That's not worth it. If it's a good memory, let them enjoy it. That's quality of life. Mood swings, look for the patterns, and then apathy. So now we're going to talk what Anne was saying about behavior. Behavior is the most basic form of communication. How do babies communicate with you? They cry. How do toddlers communicate that they're tired? They throw a tantrum. So,
And animals also.
yes, it is.
How
But
you
that's
stand in
your
front of an
form of
animal.
communication.
Yes.
That is the most basic form because it always gets a response. Always. So let's look at when these things are happening. And I always ask for an observer who can look around the room and see everything that's happening that I may not be seeing. And that means, are the windows open? Is the TV on? Is the throw that she likes to put over her lap there or not? Little tiny things, and I'm going to give you an example. So I'd like you to look at this. This is true. This is one of my patients, and she was twice a day having major meltdowns. So look at this for a minute and tell me what you think the problem is. Any ideas?
Too many things happening at one time.
That was one of my thoughts. You'll be surprised with the answer because I was. Any other thoughts? Okay, so this is a woman with aphasia. She has caregivers coming in twice a day in her home. She's pointing, and we think she's pointing to the living room. No, she's pointing to the front door. You know what made her mad? People were coming in her house and not knocking. It took us forever to figure it out.
And it happens at group homes.
Yeah, it does. And when you think
disabilities.
about it, this is her home. How dare you walk in without knocking? How dare you go into the kitchen and prepare a cup of coffee and don't even tell me this? We don't even think about that. But if you analyze things, put it in a graph and really brainstorm about what it might be, you'll get down to the reason. Then you put a little sign on the door that says, please knock before entering. Simple solution. But you had to get down to what the problem was. That's called ABC. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. It's used a lot in behavior management. The other thing you want to do is focus on why. Why is that behavior happening? Once you can figure that out, like from the chart that we just did, then you can seek ways to avoid it, like putting up the sign, please knock. It could be something as simple as someone's perfume that is irritating them, but they don't have the language to say that's what's bothering them. Or they may not even have the perception that that's what the problem is. There's just something going on that's making them agitated. Could be the color of your clothes.
I was just gonna bring that up. My son has favorite colors, and if I don't wear them for our Zoom calls, he notices right away.
Yep, and we're gonna talk about colors and.
Yes, very important.
It is very important. All my work that I've done with individuals with autism has shown me I would never wear this when I'm working with someone with autism, never.
Because it's too busy.
It's too busy.
Yes.
And they see the detail instead of the whole picture. So solid colors, different colors calm them, which we'll talk about. But, oh yeah, what
And
you
for
wear.
a smile, among people who may not understand this, my son will look at certain things like that dress and say, take that off.
Yeah.
And if people don't understand,
Yeah.
they're shocked, but I explain to them.
Exactly.
Of course.
Yeah. And then you have to look beyond the behavior. Okay, so I've had patients who strip.
Yeah, yes.
And,
It's
you know,
very
I'm
common.
like, okay, but it could be the label on that shirt is bugging them. It could be they're too hot, they're too cold. It's too tight, get it off of me. I need to use the bathroom, but I don't know how to say it. So to look beyond the surface of the behavior and not focus on the behavior, not, don't strip in front of me or put those clothes back on, but, oh, I know something's bothering you. What's wrong? What can we do? Let's try changing an outfit. You know, we have students at Benedictine that couldn't, we had to cut the labels out of everything. And not just cut the labels out, but cut out all the little stitching in the back because it irritated them. so
And
much.
you know, in the old days, people used to put their names, write their names on the labels.
No,
That didn't
not
work
anymore.
anymore.
And you kind of put yourself in their place. You know, kind of put yourself in their place and figure out where they're coming from. But I would say never address the behavior, address the cause. Figure out the cause behind that behavior and see what you can do to alleviate it. Maybe it's wearing sweatpants with elasticized waist. That's fine. If that's what makes you comfortable, that's fine. We have a choice. We choose what we're going to wear. Who do you think chooses for these people? They're caregivers. Yeah. So, and look for something that's a need that is not met. Are you meeting their needs, their basic needs? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? One of my patients that comes in, we work at my home, she prefers to sit on a porch so she can see the birds, which is environment, and she does this.
Yeah.
Not a facial tic.
Yeah.
She's thirsty, but she didn't know how to tell me that. So I would go through, are you okay? Do you need some water? And her eyes would light up. So look at the behavior and what might be underneath it. Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. I'm into neurology. Oh, okay, we have one more basic slide. What can you do? Validate. Tell them you understand. Don't ask, what's wrong? Because they probably don't know what's wrong. There's something going on, something that's making them uncomfortable. They might not recognize what it is. So accept it. I know, I see that you're upset. Show it in your body language. There's body language. Show it in how you pay attention. Reach across, touch their hand, or touch close to them, so they know that you are there for them.
The sense of touch is
Sense of touch is
unbelievably
huge.
important.
If they want it,
If they want it,
you have
but
to read
if you
their body
put your
language.
hands out and you're open to it.
Yeah.
You know, with the kids, some of the kids we worked with.
Yeah.
All you have to do is be open.
That's right, that's right. And I saw a quote when I was doing my research, and it said, I thought it said perfectly what I was trying to express. I have dementia and I'm upset. I have likely lost the ability to reason. The more you try to explain to me why my thinking is wrong, or that I don't need to be worried, the more agitated I become. Because it feels like you're not listening to me. That had such an impact on me. Because these people cannot communicate their feelings to you. And if you deny their feelings, that just isolates them even more. I know you're angry. Let's figure out why.
So that gets back to the validate and I understand.
And it's huge because I know a lot of caregivers, they want to correct, they want to address, they want to say, you can't take your shirt off in public. Well, no, you can't, but that's not going to help this person. And you have to remember their frontal cortex is damaged. That's their reasoning. They're hot, you take the shirt off. Shoes are too tight, they take the shoes off. So I thought that quote was really, really something. So give pleasant stimuli into the situation, and we'll talk about that too. Familiar music. Play the music that was popular in their era, not yours. Their era, when they were growing up, the music that they can connect with. That's huge, because those long-term memory is more intact than your short-term memory. Your working memory is damaged. Your long-term memory is still there. So if that music calms them or gives them a feeling of belonging, that's huge. And it's something that is just, it's so simple.
That's pretty easy to do now when you have Pandora app.
Yep.
or Some of those kinds of things that have song lists from the 60s or the 70s or
Yep.
the 80s.
Yep, it's,
50s. We will say you just suggested that.
yeah, 50s, yep, yeah. Use a cooling off period if you need to. Say, okay, I'm gonna go make some tea.
Oh, you're not gonna suggest a timeout?
No. However, a lot of really good caretakers have a basket of things. They're called a comfort basket. One of the things I use is I crocheted a really, really, really soft pale pink blanket. Pink is a very comforting color, plus it's got the texture. So I'll say, I'm gonna go get you a glass of water, and in the meantime, I'm gonna put that blanket next to them, not over them, next to them. And when I come back, they're usually feeling it, looking at it, and they've calmed themselves down. So be proactive before they become symptoms. Except don't contradict. I'm telling ya, back in the 70s, we knew what we were doing with our bubble lamps and our lava lamps, and now they're all the big thing again. They're all in these sensory rooms. I'm like, go in your attic and bring down what you have. But they are calming. Don't laugh, it's true. On the television screen, have little fish floating around, like an aquarium. How many doctor's offices have you been to that have aquariums? Why do you think they're there? To calm you down. So engineer that environment. Favorite music, we talked about that. Hobbies. Try to encourage their hobbies. And I'll show you, I wish that it would work on the video, but there is an app called Pictella, which I will show you.
Say it again.
Pictella,
Pictella.
and you create on an iPad or a computer a scrapbook, but it also has voice. So one of these ladies that I work with, And if you wouldn't mind sharing this, let me get her tell out. This lady, done. Back. Loves birds. So, you guys probably can't see it.
Let's go straight up here towards the camera at the top.
This is a story about birds. And it goes through, you can change the page. And she gets to see all of her favorite birds that she can no longer remember the name of. She can't remember the name? This is a house finch. Yes, that's what it is. Wow, pass that around. It's a great tool. Now, some people say, well, she doesn't understand how to use technology. She doesn't understand it. You got a caregiver there. Do those activities or show that caregiver how to use that technology. It's very soothing, plus it's also validating them as a person. This is what you loved. And you can also, I'll show you in
Can you
another,
do the narration yourself as you're making that?
yes, yes.
Is it a good idea for us to make those while we still can in preparation for when we can't?
Yes, absolutely. Get old pictures. I use it with one of my patients, and it shows her kids' faces. And then if she can't remember their name, she pushes on it and it says their name. And then she tries to say it. The same thing with looking at pictures, if they, all they remember is the war. My brother, he remembers Vietnam. You know, that's where he was injured, that's what he remembers. But he remembers his friends from there. So you make a Pictello sequence, you can see his friends and remember what he did. And that brings him, that makes him hot. The other thing that you can do, and I thought this was, let's see if I have, okay. I thought this was genius of my sister. My brother, that my whole family lives in Florida except me. So this past Christmas, we had a huge family reunion, 26 families from 5 siblings. And we really wanted my brother to come. But that wasn't his comfort zone. His comfort zone was his house, and just his house. So we brought him, and we went to his house and we showed him this red chair. This is your chair. Nobody else is going to have a red chair. Then he came to the reunion and he had his little red chair that was his comfort zone. And he did not move from that chair, but everybody came and talked to him. So it's just being considerate of the fact that when they leave their comfort zone, their anxiety increases, their ability to communicate decreases, and they're going to do fight, flight, or freeze. So make simple accommodations.
Simple accommodations like meeting at his house instead of making him go to yours.
Yes, yeah, yes, absolutely. This was a situation where everybody was going to be in a large space because it was all outside. And we really wanted him there, but we knew he'd be uncomfortable if he was just walking.
Does that mean just helping even like organize how to get there for them,
Yes,
you know?
You mean make sure whoever picks him up is somebody that he knows and
Mhm.
is comfortable with?
That's huge. And when we're talking about behaviors, the most important thing for you to remember, it's not about you. It has nothing to do with you. It's about them and how they're reacting to their own anxiety and frustration. I've had kids hit me, I've had kids throw things at me, and then they come up, you know, an hour later and they, what happened to you? It's not about me, it's about them. And that's huge, because some caregivers are like, I try so hard, what am I doing wrong? That's not it. It's not about you. And that's hard, because you always want to do it right. Let's see. Oh, another example. My dear friend, Carl, who's passed away, had Alzheimer's. All his life, he had beautiful black labs, beautiful. They were all had the same name, each progressive one. When he was in the first throes of Alzheimer, his dog passed away. And some brilliant friend bought him a stuffed animal that looked like a black lab. And he fully believed this was his dog. He would, I gotta go feed her. I gotta go take her for a walk. It's okay. Nobody corrected him. That was his comfort zone. That was perfect. Whoever brought that was just brilliant.
I think we all learn by accident sometimes, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to talk about sound and binaural beats. Has anybody heard about those? Okay, this is relatively new in the United States, not so new in Europe. Yes. Oh, you're so smart.
So we're gonna try and get this right.
Okay, so, and while she's doing that, binaural beats is you're hearing two different frequencies and your brain adjusts to an in-between. So this is a and they've done brain mapping, which shows that they can coordinate the beats to create waves, which is naturally calming. Where their brain goes right there. Value just a little bit. So close your eyes and just listen.
Can you hear there?
Probably not. But this is a binaural. You can go online and order music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And before we really put out Judy as the head of our clinical department, and the therapists put together a spate of music. And for some of our individuals at Benedictine who were having troubles, they would wear headphones. It was miraculous.
Now, there are special headphones that give
Yes.
both frequencies into
Right.
opposite ears.
Yeah.
That's the most effective way. They're kind of expensive.
Yes, slightly.
Yeah, but it does work. And if you look close,
I had to get out of it because
okay,
it wasn't moving.
sorry. I thought I had embedded all of these into the PowerPoint, but obviously.
Well, I tell you, every time we do this, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I can't fit in. It helps if you can read.
So anyway, it has been shown, we put it in our sensory rooms. It had all those little lava lamps, and bubble lamps, and crash pads, and instantly kids would calm.
It's amazing.
Our counselors used it when they had to give bad news to an individual. They would put them in the sensory room and play this music so that it's easier for them to know to understand what's being said. So, and as you can see on there, that's how it works. Okay, classical music does the same thing. I'm gonna need you again.
Okay.
Certain classical music, the beat of the music is the same as a typical heart rate. So if you play the classical music, the person who's listening to it, their heartbeat regulates back down if they're anxious or they have a lot of anxiety. So
That's
I let my technician do this.
We've also discovered that certain hymns
Yes,
have that effect, especially with our elderly populations that I work with. that it has that effect of also bringing back memories. And what we have found is people who don't seem to have much memory left know every word in there.
Yes, because it's rhythm.
And their faces change, they feel like, oh, it's just amazing.
There's not work. There it is.
No,
No.
it,
Anyway, you all know.
it's doing something a little bit different from the last one.
Anyway, these are kind of, when I showed you that first slide that had the two people talking in the filters. These are the filters that you can use. And I used to do it in my therapy room all the time. I used aromatherapy, I used the sound therapy, and I would have kids escape their classrooms and you'd find them just sitting in the office,
It-
just sitting there. This was
And some of us who worked for Judy used to escape to our offices.
okay.
It's,
And it really helps if you're playing something that they're familiar with. The hymn, it reminds them of going to church, it has poetry, it has that rhythm, and it brings back something, you know, and it calms them. That's the biggest thing. I can't imagine the anxiety and frustration that some of my patients have. And the strength that they have to continue to fight. It's just empowering to me just to see that. Okay,
for some reason, it's not going to the music.
there it is. It's okay. We don't need the music. You guys know classical music. Okay, colors. Colors are huge. And I learned this from the occupational therapist, from Pam.
Yes.
Huge. So, green. Think of what green means to you.
Go,
What?
What?
go,
outside.
Say it again.
go.
Go, go, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
To me, it's grass growing. And the studies, they performed studies where they would show people different colors and then the people would say what they were feeling and they put all of that information together. So green helps people to remain calm and it affects the nervous system. So if you notice, a lot of hospitals have like a pale green color. There's a reason for that.
And a lot of retirement villages have the same thing.
And red, what does that do?
So excited.
Yes, it's an alerting color. It's a look at me color. And that you use with a patient who is apathetic. Just can't get out of their own way. You're going to use red. You're going to wear red. Or you're going to have a blanket that's red. Something that stimulates them. It also stimulates their appetite. Because one of the things that happens with dementia and Alzheimer's is they lose their appetite. So it's, think of putting a red placemat underneath their plate. Very, very simple things. Blue. What do you guys think of blue?
Sky,
The sky.
calm.
Okay, so blue helps to contrast so the person can see it. So let's think about this. The dinner plate. First of all, you don't want a lot of patterns. That's disorganizing. That's too much for them to take in. You have a red placemat, you have a solid blue plate. Both of them are alerting. Both of them will increase their appetite and their attention to the meal. It's really easy. I didn't know all this. The OT taught me all of this. The color.
Judy taught all of us.
Well, I just started doing it. I was like, I'll
Yeah.
do anything to alter the environment so that these people can make progress and
Yes.
feel good about themselves, because that is a big deterrent to progress. So yellow triggers cognitive function. So if you want them to work on solving a problem, put it on yellow paper. If you want to alert them to something important, put it on lime green paper. It's It's amazing. Pink. Okay, pink helps reduce aggression. Like I said, I have that fluffy pink crocheted blanket that I just put next to the person. By the time I've gone to the kitchen and gotten them their water and come back, they're a little bit calmer.
So is it important for the caregiver to wear pink or for the patient to wear pink?
Both. Well, the patient, you have to take it from the patient's view. They're not going to look at themselves, but if the blanket is in front of them, they're going to see it. And I know when working with individuals with autism, which in a lot of ways coordinates with geriatric patients.
Yes.
What I wore made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Made a huge difference. So I wore a lot of pink and light
And we did wear a
lavender.
lot of necklaces and jewelry.
Get rid of this,
Right.
Get rid of the
Along with that.
because that's disconcerting.
It is.
And it moves.
Yes, and it moves.
And they're having trouble paying attention to you because your necklace is moving. Or your earrings are flashing. These are ways we can do this. Orange is similar to red, but to a lesser degree. So use the environment. Change the comforter on their bed, if it's okay with them. Put a throw on the back of a chair that's a color that will calm them. Change your draperies, maybe change the rugs on the floor, the throw rugs. All of that will create an environment that will allow communication to occur.
You do the same thing with cooking? I mean, they always tell you when you want to sell a house, bake bread
Yeah,
and you can get more office.
that's aromatherapy, we're gonna get to that. Yes, so the other thing is make it visual. The hardest thing for some of my patients is knowing what's gonna happen. And this one patient that I have, it just happened 2 weeks ago. She loves coming to therapy, we get along really well. One day, her daughter said, "Mom, we're gonna go see Judy." I don't wanna go. So she emailed me and said, "Please send me a picture." I sent her the picture, she showed the picture to the individual. "Oh, Judy." And that was okay. So what I recommend, oh gosh, okay. Make it as personal as can be. Don't draw a picture of a dentist. Don't write dentist appointment. Take a picture of your dentist and put it on the calendar. Take a picture of the place you're going. This person loves to go to Panera Bread. Panera Bread. So I went out and took a picture of Easton's Panera Bread and put it on her calendar. And now she knows what's going on. I'm not going to have to. And never assume that you know what they want. So this was simple to make. I went online to Panera Bread. I copied and pasted the pictures of their menu. So when she goes, she has a visual. Imagine someone with dementia looking in that huge screen.
I can't even do
I know.
Like a Chinese restaurant.
Yes. Yes. So, and even if they order something you don't think they want, that's okay. They can still order it, but make it visual. Make everything as visual as you can. And here we go, Jim, aromatherapy. I told Anna if I had packed everything last night, I would have brought my diffusers.
I used to do that.
I always did aromatherapy in my therapy room, and I do it in my home.
Yes.
I use lavender because it's calming. But I know that our OT used to use peppermint because it's alerting. It gets people to pay attention. But it is just as effective as using music. It sets a tone. Lavender, I'm gonna fly through these things because I know my time's almost up, is what I use. It's an anti-inflammatory, it's calming. I have, one of my patients, I presented a choice board, like the one you saw before, of all the activities I wanted to accomplish in therapy. And then some other little things like a squeeze ball or lotion. And let them pick which order. We're going to do all these things, but what do you want to do first? And this one lady kept picking the lotion. She loved having me rub lotion on her hands. Lavender lotion. When I got a different kind of lotion, she got mad at me. So I had to go back and get the lavender lotion, but it helps, it's calming, and also the tactile.
The tactile, and that's another factor in yoga and also in using different kinds of medicine, like Chinese medicine,
Right.
using all of those factors bring the senses together. And the senses that are weaker are taken over by the stronger ones. And it really does help.
It
It
really
doesn't
does.
cure them.
But know the person, because some
Right.
scents they don't like. They might not like lavender, so you have to individualize, but it really is helpful.
Are
to
there
use.
local organizations for people to belong to where, let's say you got the wrong thing, that somebody else that might be
Mhm.
perfect for them and you
I
could
swap it
share
out with different therapists, yeah.
Yeah.
Any kind of a clinic, if you went in and said, look, I've got this essential oil, my mother hates it, can you use it? Yeah, and then there's a website here that you can go to get more information. You know, we've talked about a lot of things that affect communication. These are some of those things that affect communication with no cognitive factor, which has got to be the most frustrating thing. And for them, you might want to look into augmentative communication. And there's tons of forms of augmentative communication. Choice boards. What you want to do with a choice board is you want to keep the essential words, here is yes and no, keep them in the same place on every board. Because motor memory is stronger than visual memory. So if they know, no, it's over here, no.
That's right.
And you leave it that way on every single board that you make, change the other pictures, you're allowing them to use motor memory. These are some examples of different boards. Many times people in a hospital situation or a rehab situation can't express their needs until they see it visually. Or you can go through and point to it. Does your head hurt? Do your feet hurt? And they can give you a simple yes, no answer. Or you can understand it by their expression. A lot of people need these stroke patients who may have a trach or have aphasia, but still have the cognitive skills to understand pictures. I use that a lot. Pictella, let's see if we can get this up.
You don't have time.
I don't have time. Okay.
It'll take too long to get it going.
Okay, for those of you who are here, I can show you Pictello. That's the storybook.
Yeah.
But you can also make it for a vacation they've been on, or of their family, whatever is important to them. And it's a talking system, and they can also use it to tell other people what they've done. I went to the park, I saw this beautiful tree, so all of that. This is a single switch. You can put things on it like tired, thirsty. It has voice output. You use your voice to record the response, and they can hear it. It's better sometimes than a choice board because you don't have to be right next to them to see what they're saying. You can hear it across the room. They're inexpensive. They're really,
And they get a confirmation.
and they get a confirmation. Yes, thank you. Text to speech. A lot of stroke patients use this. They are inexpensive apps. They can work on an iPhone, they can work on an iPad, they can work on a computer that has a monitor that can handle touch. And they just spell it out and then it speaks it. It gives them more independence than me standing over going, want, so it gives them more independence. You can also use big keys if they're having trouble to visually interact with some kind of technology. They've got these amazing keys now that have the neon light that comes out from underneath. I use the green light. I use the green light and then the bigger keys so they can spell things out. And it gives them a whole new level of independence. Some books that you might want to read. I know there's a ton of books out there. Still Alice, if you haven't read it, read that book. It's amazing and gives you such
It's
insight.
unbelievable.
And then there are the references. I do. I have 10 minutes for questions.
Yes, and you said you would be sending the PowerPoint out to everybody?
Yeah, if you want the PowerPoint, I'll definitely send it out, and I'll send it out with my notes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
did it help?
Yes,
Oh, it's amazing.
it was great.
Thanks. There's so many aspects to it. As I was doing it, I would wake up in the morning and go, oh, I forgot to put this in there. But so much of it we just do naturally. You don't realize that you're actually engineering that environment to make it positive.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that I'm already doing some of it at least.
Yes.
But it gave a lot of things to be more aware of.
Yeah. It's reaffirming to know that you're on the right track.
Or knowing what we have not
Need
been
to,
doing.
yeah, or need to work on, yeah.
Yeah. But I've learned more from my patients than I think they've ever learned from me. But
You know, this program really should be something that goes out to more people and maybe even 2 sessions, so you can go a little slower and get more interaction of, you know, things that have happened to people. I kept thinking when you're talking about like people that take their clothes off, well, my sister-in-law is dealing with our 95-year-old aunt who in the middle of the night, she'll start taking her nightgown off or her pajamas off. And she and her husband are like, oh, geez, too much information, but it's at the same time, you go, well, is she hot? Or is it because she needs to go to the bathroom?
Right.
You know, there are all these, you know, it's such a puzzle that it's, you know, it's like,
yeah,
it's, yeah.
exactly. And that's like,
But I think I was asking before, it's more like, are there support groups that are out there? Like,
Yes.
I know they have support
Yes.
groups for blind.
No, they're
Caregivers.
wonderful support groups there are many retirement communities in this area.
and the senior centers.
And
Senior
senior
centers
centers.
offer a lot of
And
this.
they are there for the asking because people don't want to go to a support group.
Yeah.
Hospice also has a caregiver support group. Now, I don't know about how it is going now, but in the past, oh, absolutely superb. But they were always open to more people coming because it's very hard to say.
They do Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it seems like hearing other people's issues that they've had to deal with is
Right.
probably such a great idea for, as a group, to go, well, we had that happen and we tried this.
Yes.
or
You're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, going to another place, like I know my brother has a hard time going to another place. He's got a favorite jacket that he wears. He wears it around the house. And we make sure that he wears it when he goes to the store. A shawl that is a calming color, has a nice texture that they can feel. Just making those little adjustments is going to lessen those filters that are interfering with communication. And it's also interrelated. It's hard to just talk about speech.
Well, it makes us be a lot more understanding and thinking about the way we respond to, because sometimes you get impatient with your mom
Oh, yeah.
or whatever.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You don't realize that there is an underlying reason why she got so upset about having to go to the McDonald's for the nephew's birthday party or whatever.
Because it's out of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're probably sitting in a glassed-in area with
Lots of screaming
lots of
kids.
screaming kids, all that ambient noise. I mean, good lands. It's taken them the worst place that they can go.
She was there for the McFlurry.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. Eddie?
Any other questions, comments from people?
No, this
is
great.
Yeah.